The insanity that is Mark Drakeford's politics continues to ruin Wales. In this video, we're going to be explaining the real motive behind the Welsh Labour government's 20 miles per hour limit policy. Right, if you have been watching this channel, you have probably noticed that we talk a lot about net zero, we talk a lot about devolved administrations and all the authoritarian policies, and Wales, as usual, Mark Drakeford. We have been warning against this 20 miles per hour limit policy has been going on for a while. In the next few days, actually on the 17th of September, we're going to have the implementation of this widespread blanket policy nonsense. So, Mark Drakeford, on the left-hand side, the First Minister of Wales, believes that having a 20 miles per hour zone, basically mandatory across all the streets, is going to be good for everybody. Good for traffic, good for the environment, good for children who are apparently playing on the streets. This is quite funny. Mark Drakeford believes that this is some sort of like 1930s sort of situation where all the kids are like playing around on the roads, and if you drive about 30 miles per hour, 30 miles, which is quite slow, the kids' lives are at risk. But 20 miles, kids are going to be safe. Everything's going to be fine. The problem I have with this policy, and that's why I'm going to also talk about the motive behind it, the real motive. It's quite fascinating because it's not necessarily the number 20. You know, some people would say, well, you're just having a meltdown. It's only 20 miles per hour. But 20 miles per hour is very, very slow. It's just completely annoying. Secondly, it's not really because we just want people to just drive fast for no reason. The problem I have with this is that the public consultation that they had, allegedly, on this issue has been completely nonsensical, and they've completely ignored all the concerns. That's one issue. Secondly, basic evidence, they ignore that as well. Thirdly, it doesn't really go with their own narrative. You had the police chief, there was a leaked letter. The police chief actually admitted in Wales that the speed limit change will have an impact on emergency services. So everyone's going to be completely chaotic. So you're going to have the police officers and drivers who would be professionally trained to use the police cars. We know that. But doesn't actually apply to paramedics and other services. That's going to be one main difference. Secondly, there has been no logic behind this. The real motive about it is mainly goes with the whole package of everything centralized. Everything is done by the state, for the state. Everything from net zero policies to data surveillance, and of course they're going around against our privacy and everything else, high taxes. This is a perfect example of this situation. You got the Welsh Conservatives who in the Senate are basically previously called this policy a madcap policy. In response to the leaked letter, the Shadow Transport Minister, Natasha Asghar, said that contrary to saving lives, I fear that lives will actually be lost because of this policy. Now, the consultation that was launched, there was a couple of them, but this was the latest update, which was in March this year. Everything about this reminds us of how Sadiq Khan conducted all the research and consultations about ULEZ expansion. They don't really care about public opinion. They don't really care about true expert advice. They go, if you've watched in the past, the Thick of It, the TV show, The Thick of It, which was supposed to be political satire and sitcom, that said it perfectly. In that show, there was a point where the senior advisor, Malcolm Tugger, said, yeah, we need to do a focus group and get an expert. And they said, well, how do we find an expert? He said, you need to find the expert that that he's going to give you the right advice. You have to find the right expert that's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. So you just use that as evidence. You go to the public and say, hey, we found an expert, independent expert. That is literally saying what we want him to say. So we have had some reactions on social media about this. This account said, I tried driving at 20 the other day and nearly stole the car. It's that slow. We have Manzi saying, the whole thing will increase pollution threefold. That's actually a very good point, because when you are going to have a massive change, everyone's going to be confused anyway, and you're going to have all these narrow roads in Wales, and people are going to drive slower, and there's going to be more traffic everywhere. People are going to get stuck in traffic, and that means more pollution. So you use your brain. It's like the low traffic neighborhood as a policy. You're literally blocking roads. That means there's going to be traffic in other roads next door. It makes no sense. Politics Watch said it has nothing to do with safety and everything to do with taking people off the road in the name of the climate gods. This is the main motive. The main motive is to centralize every single thing and go against your own self-determination and independence and freedom as a human being. Because once you completely rely and depend on the state, which again in the future it could also be everything, including your own money in the name of digital currencies, or it could be your own income in the name of universal basic income, everything you will get from the state. The state will provide everything to you, like it's the Soviet Union all over again. But it's okay, because it won't be communist, it will be capitalist, because you're going to have corporations doing it. Firstly, that's not capitalism, that's crony corporatism. That's not even actual free market, but it's almost as bad as communism, because you're going to have centralized machines, centralized corporations and centralized governments essentially taking care of us. Is this really the world we want to live in? For them to get rid of all the cars, for them to get rid of all the gas boilers, and it starts slowly, but when you put them all together, every single thing you own and your own freedoms will go away, unless you say no now. Now, there was also some reaction on this. This tweet said, in response to Mark Drakeford saying kids will be protected now, saying, kids don't play in roads. Roads are for cars. Cars are not designed to travel at 20 miles per hour. Emissions will be higher. There is no health benefit. You cannot say you will save 10 lives. That's BS. It's a vanity project that was not voted for. It's a waste of resources. This is also the the fifth problem I have. There's no public consent about these sort of issues. So what in the past political parties have done until the last general election, and you're going to have it again in the next general election, is political parties go and put vague ideas in their manifestos, and then they will introduce technical policies while they're in government, and if you challenge them, they say, well, technically this is linked to that vague idea in the manifesto. So in each manifesto you had, from the Tories to Labour and Lib Dems, everyone's saying, we're going to do things for the climate, net zero. They didn't say exactly what they're going to do. So throughout the parliamentary terms, or in Wales or in Scotland, for example, you're going to have these politicians introducing random policies, and if you ask them what it's related to, they say, well, we did mention net zero in the manifesto. We did mention we're going to be environmentalists. Yeah, but you didn't exactly say what sort of policy you're going to introduce. This is tyrannical. It makes no sense. It's like saying, well, in the manifesto, I did say I'm going to provide strong and stable law and order. So you can technically the next day go and create a martial law dictatorship saying, well, I did say I'm going to create a strong and stable society. Now everybody is locked in their own houses. This is how they get away with it in the political establishment until we say no. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about what's going on in Wales, especially if you are from Wales. What are your thoughts on this policy? I'm Tousi, and we are the media.